Andy Martino was the first to kind of talk about this today, right? Giving an update, teams are talking with the Yankees and the Padres. They are talking players, but no, it says here, not close on agreement. But listen, I think it's getting close. I'm going to be honest with you, everyone. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, it's in the title, close to a trade, right? I did put the question mark. But to me, if you're swapping names back and forth, it just feels like it's escalating, right? It just feels like it's getting to that point. Come on. When you're at these stages where specific names are going back and forth, I feel like it's only a matter of time. But this article goes on to say, while the exact names are not known, the Padres are said to be looking at top prospects or rookies like Jason Dominguez and Anthony Volpe, young major league pitchers in Michael King, Clark Schmidt, right, and more. This is standard behavior at the beginning of trade talks for a superstar. It was also standard behavior for the Yankees to say no, but want to keep talking, right? It's negotiations, right? The Padres, of course, are going to shoot for the moon. Of course, they're going to ask for Jason Dominguez. Of course, they're going to ask for Anthony Volpe. But we also got some more news from The Athletic a little later on. A source tells The Athletic that the Yankees are reluctant to surrender upper echelon young talent in terms of prospects, like we had just read. Like even Drew Thorpe, right? That's a name that wasn't mentioned in the other article. And then you got Jason Dominguez and Anthony Volpe here. San Diego is believed to be targeting starting pitching that could help in the majors as soon as next season. And the Yankees could offer righty Clark Schmidt, who's currently in the Yankees rotation, or righties Will Warren or Chase Hampton, a pair of highly regarded prospects who could reach the majors next season. Listen, this all makes sense. This all just completely lines up. When you're seeing names like Clark Schmidt, Will Warren, maybe even Chase Hampton, it fits when it comes to the values, right? If you're looking at some of these guys in the prospect list, right, on MLB Pipeline, you got Spencer Jones as the number 1. You got Jason Dominguez as the number 2. I wonder if a name like Everson Pereira could come up. This is a young outfielder who has a lot of promise. I could see him being involved in a deal if they were. Yes, they are looking for pitching, but I think you could get both Everson Pereira and maybe Clark Schmidt, or if you wanted to do a Chase Hampton, right? I think it's even possible to get a couple of pitchers, right? If you did Clark Schmidt or Chase Hampton, I think you could even throw in Will Warren in there as well, or maybe even a name like Trey Sweeney. I could absolutely see that happening. So let's go to the baseball trade value simulator. I have a trade put together here. So in this one, this is one that I've already, this one's close to what I have presented before on this channel. I haven't included Clark Schmidt before. I don't know why, honestly. I don't know why I never thought of Clark Schmidt. It obviously is a major league ready pitcher. That would be perfect for the Padres. He can go right into their rotation for next year. They need pitching, right? You got a lot of pitchers leaving this off season, right? Waka, Lugo, those are just a couple of guys. You're losing a ton of innings, so they need to replace those innings. So Clark Schmidt would make a lot of sense, but then you could also throw in Will Warren, a good, solid prospect on the mound. And you could also have Everson Pereira in here. And then I've also included Anthony Rizzo. I do wonder if that could be a name that could be in some kind of a deal like this, right? Where, the Padres are unloading a lot of that salary. I could maybe even see the Yankees sending over Anthony Rizzo and maybe paying a little bit of the contract. I think it's possible because with Rizzo, he is an underwater contract at the moment. He had a down year last year. He had some injuries last year, had the concussion, right? So his value has diminished a little bit. So as you can see, a negative 7.2 value. But I definitely could see the Yankees maybe paying a little bit of this. But I could definitely see where, taking on the negative value, I think that will help the Padres bring in more talent, right? Personally, I don't think you're going to see a name like Michael King. Michael King was so good for the Yankees last year. I think the Yankees are going to value him too much. I would be shocked if he is included in this deal, to be completely honest, unless they package Soto. Michael King, this is a guy who really showed how good he can be in the starter role moving over from the bullpen. He was already really good in the bullpen, right? This is a good arm for the Yankees. He's under a lot of control. He's not making a ton of money. That's exactly what major league teams want. They want good talent under a lot of control that don't cost a lot of money. So Michael King, I personally just don't see it. Volpe, I don't see that either. I mean, this is a young shortstop at 22 years old. He showed some promise last year. I just don't see Volpe being in this deal for 1 year of Soto. I know it's Juan Soto at the end of the day, but Anthony Volpe could end up being a really good shortstop for you long term, and he's only 22 years old, barely making any money. I mean, he can only go up from here. I think Volpe is going to be a really solid player for the Yankees. I don't see the Yankees getting rid of him at all. So, Jason Dominguez. Could you, to me, I think with Jason Dominguez, I think you could entertain the possibility of simply, this might sound crazy to a lot of people. I'm probably going to have some people roll their eyes at me when I say this. Just do a swap, Juan Soto for Jason Dominguez, right? I know that, or maybe Jason Dominguez and, maybe one or two more prospects there, but I don't see the Yankees getting rid of Dominguez. I just don't. I think it could happen. It just depends, right? If they want Dominguez, it's going to be hard for them to get a picture. You could do Dominguez. I'm not saying you can't, right? But if they want pitching, it's going to be hard, in my opinion. Unless you do like Dominguez, maybe you could do Dominguez like Will Warren, or like Dominguez and Drew Thorpe, right? Or maybe you could do, Dominguez, you throw in Anthony Rizzo there, right, to kind of offset that value. And then you could do maybe like a picture, like Clark Schmidt. I could see that maybe, so could you maybe, so let's actually clear this trade out. Let's actually put that together real quick. So let's say I did Clark Schmidt, Rizzo, and Dominguez. Well, actually, you know what? That's actually not bad right there when you actually crunch the numbers together. That could be a possibility. It's going to be tough, I think, for the Yankees to part with him. I mean, this is going to be a special player, in my opinion. Jason Dominguez, he's the real deal. I have a hard time seeing the Yankees giving him up unless they knew without a shadow of a doubt that they could absolutely sign Juan Soto to an extension. That's the only way I could see it happening. That's tough to give up right there. It's not, if you lose Dominguez, that would hurt. It would, right? I mean, this guy's been so hyped for so many years with the Yankees. I personally, I guess I have a hard time seeing the Yankees doing it, right? I don't know. Alfredo Cabading, Padres not taking on money and a broken down first baseman. Well, if you want to get good players in return, you might have to take on a negative value if you want to get more talent in return. And with Rizzo, yeah, he is going to cost you, some salary, but he's going to be way less than Juan Soto. So I could see maybe the Yankees maybe sending over a little bit of money. I would absolutely not count that out and they could use a first baseman, right? So I could see the possibility of Rizzo. Let's say you don't do Rizzo. Let's say, that, right? The thing is, it's going to be hard at this point because Soto, with 1 year left, it's going to be hard to squeeze in a good amount of talent here. If you're doing Schmidt and Dominguez, I don't see that happening, right? So if you did Dominguez, maybe you could do, I don't know. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Could you Nestor Cortez, Will Warren? Maybe, maybe something like this could work out. Jason Dominguez, Nestor Cortez, Will Warren. There are ways to do it. It's going to be tough, I think, on the Yankees if they have to include Dominguez. I personally don't think they will have to. I think the Yankees have enough to be able to put together a decent package. And I think the guy that you can start with is Clark Schmidt. And then you can include guys like Will Warren. You could put in Everson Pereira in there. I think it can get done without Jason Dominguez. That's just my opinion. But I could see Dominguez being in a deal because he can fit. Another thing with Dominguez, right, is he just had to get elbow surgery. So sure, he is going to come back, right? But how do the Padres, feel about that, right? Are they going to say, well, Dominguez, he had the elbow surgery, his value's, way down right now. So you got to put Dominguez, maybe a couple other players in there too. So I could see maybe the Yankees and the Padres disagreeing on the value of Dominguez, right? So I think that could be a sticking point. I don't think you got to do Dominguez personally. But my point here is that a deal can absolutely get done. There is flexibility here. Whether you include Anthony Rizzo, whether you don't include Rizzo, there's a bunch of different ways you can make this happen. And that's why I think it's going to happen, right? The fact that they're talking names right now, I think it happens. I think it's only a matter of time for Juan Soto to be in pinstripes. That is just my opinion. Everyone, let's move on to our next story. I mean, we've been talking a lot of Juan Soto lately. Hey, I think it's going to happen here eventually. Let's move on to kind of a story today that really caught me off guard a little bit. This one really just came out of left field. No pun intended. This one kind of came out of left field, and that is Randy Arozarena. And this is coming from Michael Marino. Now, in case you don't know who Michael Marino is, I'm just going to say this, right? This is a guy that he's out there. He's got the boots on the ground. He's doing his work out there. I'm going to tell you this right now. If there's anyone that has seen Michael Marino, that might be a new name that you're kind of getting used to, right? We're used to the big names like Jeff Passan, Bob Nightingale, right? Ken Rosenthal. We're used to those names, right? I want you to really start getting used to the name Michael Marino, right? And actually, everyone, I got a bit of a treat for you. Michael Marino is actually going to be on tomorrow night's show, so be here tomorrow night. He's going to be a special guest. We're going to be talking all the rumors. We're going to be talking it all. I'm going to tell you this right now. Michael Marino, he knows his stuff. I'm not going to go into detail, but this is a man that you can trust, and I know. Just trust me on that. He's a name that you can definitely trust. So let's move on to the story. Randy Arozarena, he says here, can confirm, right? And this is coming from MLB Nerds. The difference between Michael Marino and Jack from MLB Nerds is that Jack kind of just tends to throw a lot of stuff out there, where Michael Marino, he's a bit more conservative when it comes to putting out rumors, right? That's, I think, the difference between those two. I'm not saying MLB Nerds doesn't know anything out there or doesn't have any sources or whatever. I just feel like there's been times where he just throws a lot out there, and it's almost like he's kind of putting stuff out there and he's just seeing what sticks, right? That's just the impression that I get, while Michael Marino doesn't do that as often. So what he said here is he can confirm what Jack from MLB Nerds was saying about Arozarena, where he said, big news regarding the outfield market. The Rays are shopping Arozarena, and there's a good chance that he is moved. Right, and Marino confirmed this, saying that has been the buzz this week. If traded, Randy is a huge get for whoever lands him. I'm going to be very honest with you. When I first read this, I'm thinking, I don't know about this one, right? This one is a little weird, right? I think it's more teams are calling around, right? Because there's not a lot of beef on the position player market, right? You got the Cody Bellingers, you got the Matt Chapmans, obviously you got Ohtani, but Ohtani is Ohtani, right? That's like a completely different stratosphere. So, but when it comes to other guys that are on the market, it's a little thin. It's very, very, very top heavy. So you are seeing teams, I think, get creative and really looking around to see who could be available. So when I first read this, I'm thinking, I think it's just teams kicking the tires. I think it's teams just seeing what could be available. And then I started thinking about it a little bit more, because my first reaction is, why would the Rays trade Arozarena, right? A really good season last year. Hit 254, 364 on base, 425 slugging, could be higher, but he had a 126 WRC plus. That's really solid. 23 homers. Also had 22 stolen bases. A really good year for him. This is a really solid player to have on your team. He brings a good energy, right? He was always doing the arm crosses, right? He's a fan favorite. This is a guy, he really brings the energy, right? He's a fun player. So he's not just going to bring, a good set of skills to your team, but he's also just going to be great for the fan base wherever he goes, right? Fun player. Go back to the World Baseball Classic. He was having a blast out there, right? So I'm thinking, why would the Rays want to get rid of Arozarena? And actually, if we actually go to the splits, there is one thing I do want to point out. He did have a tough second half, right? He was very good in the first half. He was hitting 279, had 16 homers, right? He was definitely doing a lot better in the second half, right? Or sorry, in the first half. A 144 WRC plus, had an 855 OPS, and his numbers dipped a bit in the second half. Went from an 855 OPS to a 700 OPS, right? So, 144 WRC plus to a 101. So that is something to keep in mind. Maybe was he playing through some injuries? Was he playing, through some fatigue? Who knows, right? That is something to keep in mind. Either way, though, still a very good bat for this team and a very marketable player. So I'm thinking, why would the Rays want to trade their most marketable player? And you can't say Wander Franco now, because who knows what's even going to be happening with Wander Franco. Is he going to be even playing next year? I don't even know what's going on with him, right? But it's like with Wander Franco, you really can't even bank on him for next year. So Randy Arozarena, this is your guy. This is sure, I know the Rays are going to be getting you ballpark and everything, but but still, they're going to be staying in Tampa, right? They're going to be staying in St. Pete. So it's not like, it's not like they have to go through any huge changes, right? So Arozarena right now, this is a very marketable player for you. I mean, yeah, you got Yandy Diaz, you got Isaac Paredes, and, guys like Jose Siri, you got some talent on this team. But when it comes to the marketing aspect, Arozarena, that's the guy. He's going to be leading the jersey sales, in my opinion, right? You're going to be seeing the arm crosses everywhere with him, right? So I'm thinking, why would they want to trade him? Well, if you go to the top prospects, right? And this is kind of during the day, I kind of thought about it a little bit more. I'm like, you know what? They got Caminero, who could be up next year, right? He came up for a cup of coffee last year. Got Curtis Mead as well. These are two bats that are ready, right? Two right-handed bats as well. So, could that actually mean that maybe Arozarena could be expendable, right? We've seen the Rays do this, where they got these guys that are coming up from the minor leagues, and they just like to throw these guys out there, right? So, that's kind of where I started to think, you know what? Maybe Arozarena could be expendable. Maybe there could be something there, right? So, yeah, we got Super Chat coming in. Ari Pie, we got a $13.99. How you doing? Jays are getting Ohtani. Thoughts on them? I'll get to that in just a little bit. Trust me, I got all the Ohtani news coming right up in just a little bit, right after this story. But just to answer your question real quick, hey, the Blue Jays are trying to make a splash, right? It's going to be a matter of, does Ohtani want to go there, right? The Blue Jays absolutely would love to have him. It's going to come down to, are they going to be able to present enough to Ohtani to convince him to go there? I think that's the big thing. Obviously, that's the big thing with every team, right? But with the Blue Jays, I think they might have a tough time. Unless the Blue Jays can really present something to him, like, hey, we are in this to win, right? I know we haven't had a lot of success the last couple of years, but, we're ready to take that next step, and we're going to do whatever we can to accommodate everything you need, right? What will they present to him in terms of those accommodations for him? I don't know. The Blue Jays personally are lower on my list, but I wouldn't count them out just because they got money to spend, right? You got Rogers Communications. That's the media company that owns the Blue Jays. So I don't think you can count them out. Personally, I think they could be a finalist. I don't know. I could definitely eat my words, but I just don't see the Blue Jays getting him. That's just my own opinion. It's more of a feel thing. I could be dead wrong, right? I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but because you don't really know what's going on. With the Blue Jays, I'm just looking at where have they been in terms of winning, right? Yeah, sure, they've had winning records the last few years, but they haven't been able to really get it done. But you could say the same thing about the Dodgers, right? So maybe they got a shot. Maybe they have a better shot than you would think, right? I don't know exactly, but those are my thoughts. When it comes to perception, I don't know. It feels off, but maybe I'm not really opening up my mind as much. So I think it could be pretty interesting. It could be an interesting fit there. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Thank you for the super chat. I greatly appreciate that. But yeah, because of Junior Caminero and Curtis Mead coming up, I think Arozarena could be expendable. And if we're looking at some teams here, I've come up with a list of teams that I think need bats, but could also just be great fits, right? And the one thing about Arozarena is this guy is affordable, man. I mean, this is a guy who is cheap. If you're looking at the AAV, I mean, he's at a $4.2 million AAV. If we're going to look at the Rays right now, right, when it comes to their payroll, Arozarena, first off, is not a free agent until 2027, so he's got years of control there. And then if we're looking at what he's going to be getting here for this coming season, it's a projected $9 million. That is extremely affordable in today's game, right? You probably see a bump, maybe up to around $11 million for 25. Maybe it goes up to 13 and 26, maybe around 15 possibly. Arozarena, 3 years of control and very affordable at the same time. So the teams that I think could be a great fit, I'm going to be honest with you, I love the idea of the Miami Marlins. I love the idea, right? They gets him out of the American League. They won't have to go up against him. He stays in Florida. This one just makes a lot of sense to me because when I'm thinking of the Rays, right, if we go back to the top prospects, right? You know what I'm not seeing a lot of? Pitching, right? I'm seeing Mason Montgomery. You know, that could be a guy, sure, right? If we're taking a look at the numbers, last year had a 3.98 ERA. Not bad, 29 starts, right? He was in AAA last year for 4 starts. So you could definitely see Mason Montgomery up next year. But after that, not a lot of pitching, right? And what the Marlins do have, they do have some pitching, right? If you take a look at some of these guys that have been in the rumor mill before, maybe you could do a deal with Trevor Rogers. Maybe you could do something with Edward Cabrera. I could see the Rays, when you look at the stuff of Edward Cabrera, man, with the velocity that he has, I could see the Rays being very intrigued with that, right? And Trevor Rogers, I mean, these two guys are under a lot of control, right? If I actually go and take a look at what a trade could look like with the Rays and the Marlins, right? So let's go ahead. Let's put Arozarena on the Marlins, right? And if we're actually, real quick, taking a look at their depth chart, I mean, yeah, sure. You got Brian De La Cruz out in left. You got Jesus Sanchez out in right. You got Jazz Chisholm out in center. So, I don't know. Could you to me, it's like if you could have the chance at Arozarena, I would think, man, there could be something here. Or maybe you could include one of these guys that ends up going back. Then again, that's another thing. It's like with Arozarena, I mean, how much money do you really want to save? When it comes to Brian De La Cruz, Jesus Sanchez, they're going to be making a lot less than $9 million. So I guess you could look at it that way. But if we're taking a look here, and actually, real quick, let me actually go here. Let me see. What would be the expected salaries for those guys next year? Just so I can check that off. When it comes to Brian De La Cruz, it's saying to be determined. So it's not even giving you a number. So that's probably going to be very cheap. So yeah, the Rays could probably end up saving like maybe $7 to $8 million right there. So yeah, I could see the Rays doing that. Anyway, let's go back to this trade. Again, I think some pitching would be really good to send back to the Rays. Or maybe you could just, and again, include someone like Brian De La Cruz, right? So let's take a look. So let's throw in, I don't know, Randy Arozarena, 33.5 on the median value, right? 33.5 million. So that's a good amount. So you could maybe do someone like Trevor Rogers if they really wanted to do that. If you didn't want to do Trevor Rogers, maybe you could just do Edward Cabrera. He's going to be a bit cheaper, around 10 million cheaper. So maybe you could do Jesus Sanchez, right? And right there, I mean, you're right on the right track. Edward Cabrera, Jesus Sanchez. That's not bad if you ask me, right? That's a good starting point, and you could throw in maybe one more prospect there. I think you could really get something done here. This is a good fit to me. I like this. So if you didn't do Jesus Sanchez, could you do Brian De La Cruz? Brian De La Cruz actually would be cheaper than Jesus Sanchez. So, I think something could get done with the Marlins and the Rays. I think it's a pretty good fit for both teams. But if we're looking at some other teams, the Dodgers, hey, I think another bat could be inserted in here. I think the Dodgers would be a pretty nice fit. You know, the Dodgers got prospects, and they got some young pitching as well that they could send back. I'm not saying, there has to be pitching that goes back, but that's the advantage of the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers got prospects. They can make so many deals. They could go get Dylan Cease, and they could go get Randy Arozarena if they really wanted to, right? That would be a lot of prospects you'd be having to give up there. That's around $70 million worth of prospects at that point. That's a lot of prospects, right? When you're looking at $70 million worth of prospects, that's a lot. Just to give you a comparison, Juan Soto, right? The package of prospects that went back to the Nationals, if I remember correctly, that was around $120 to $130 million worth of prospects. Just to give you an idea of how much that is. So if you're looking at around $70 million worth of prospects, that's a really good amount, man. If you wanted to get Cease and Arozarena. So the Dodgers would definitely have to give up a bit. But they could definitely use something here. You got Chris Taylor out and left for the projected lineup for next year. Hayward's out and right. So, yeah, I could see a fit here with Arozarena. Absolutely. And they could get a deal done. How about the Giants, right? The Giants, let's see what happens with Ohtani. Let's see. Can they land Ohtani? Can they land Bellinger if they swing and miss on Ohtani? Maybe someone like Chapman. I could see Chapman, Bellinger being really good fits. Ohtani obviously would be a great fit for them. But let's say they do swing and miss on all of these free agents, right? Could you maybe pivot to a trade? Could you do someone like Randy Arozarena? I think you could possibly piece something together. The Giants, when it comes to their prospects, there's not a lot of wiggle room when it comes to giving up prospects and major league ready guys. There's not really, in my opinion, a ton that you could send back. So I think the Giants could have a harder time coming up with a trade personally. How about the Atlanta Braves? All right, how about the Atlanta Braves? Now, I think if they don't get Cease, that could open up the possibility. But if they get Cease, I think the Braves would be a tough fit for Arozarena personally, right? It's because I just don't think they're going to have enough at that point if you give up prospects for Cease. So let's see what happens there. But the Braves would be a good fit. Honestly, if you wanted to do, send back Vaughn Grissom, send back a young starter, from the Braves, right? Like Shawver, I could see something like that, or maybe even a Bryce Elder. I think that's very possible. Maybe the Mets, right? Right now, the Mets, we're going to talk about the Mets in just a little bit, but DJ Stewart is their projected left fielder for next year. Arozarena would be under control for 3 years, so that would still fit into the Mets timeline of competitiveness, right? And they're still going to try and compete next year. I could honestly see David Stearns making a move like that, right? Because with Arozarena, you're thinking with the Mets, right? We're so used to them dropping cash. But I could see David Stearns making a move like that for Arozarena, right? I think that could be a creative way, instead of just dropping cash left and right, which I don't see the Mets really doing. Yes, they signed Luis Severino. They got Joey Wendell tonight. But those are the kind of moves that I see the Mets doing. I don't see the Mets dropping insane cash. I just don't. I think they could maybe land one of these starters. I think it's possible you could get Yamamoto. We'll talk about Eduardo Rodriguez in a little bit. Jordan Montgomery. That's been more speculative. Jeff Passan is saying that's a perfect free agent target for them. I know a lot of people have been saying out there Jordan Montgomery, could the Mets want him? From what I've read, and maybe I've missed something, that seems more speculative at that point, based off of what Passan wrote, because Passan more suggested it. He didn't really say the Mets have been going after him hard. So that is one thing to consider. But with the Mets, I could see Arozarena being something here. They could use another bat. They really could. It felt like last year they just lacked a bat. Felt like they were one bat short last year. And I think Arozarena could be good. It could be good for the chemistry of the team, right? I think there's a lot of opportunities out here. I see you, Benavides, Soto to the Mariners. Why not? I think the Mariners could use another bat too. And the Mariners, they got some young pitching. Could. Ooh, hey, Beneverse, I like this idea. I'm going to put this together right here. I like it. You know why? Because the Mariners got some pitching. Again, you'd have to be keeping him in the American League in this trade. I wonder do the Rays even care about that? I don't know. But what the Mariners do have is they have pitching. Could you send maybe Bryce Miller or Brian Wu back to the Rays? I could see that. Cost-controlled pitching. Get a bat like a Arozarena who can bring some energy. I like it. I like the fit of Arozarena with the Mariners. That's another one, too. There's a market out here. And the more I thought about it throughout the day, because I was stuck on the fact, like, man, the Rays, like, you're going to ship out literally your most marketable player right now. But then I thought about it more. I'm like, you know what? It's the Rays. It's just what they do. Their fans are used to it. It feels a little weird, right? Because he is 3 years away from free agency. Usually with the Rays, this kind of stuff comes up more if, maybe they're a year away from free agency or maybe 2, right? But 3 years, that's a long time. But they could capitalize on it. I could definitely see something happening. So keep your eyes out for this, everyone. Very interesting. Very, very interesting story that we had today. All righty. Let's move on here. Let's talk a little Shohei Ohtani. We got over 500 people in this chat, everyone. Everyone, stop what you're doing. Put down all the tea that you're sipping right now and hit that like button for me. I will love you forever. Let's get to 200 likes tonight. We got 500 people. I don't see why we couldn't get to 200 likes. All right, let's get back to it. Here we go. Let's get back to Michael Marino. Again, for those of you that didn't hear earlier, Michael Marino will be on the show tomorrow night. We're going to be talking rumors. We're going to be talking everything. And so make sure you come out for tomorrow night's show. Michael Marino will be on with us live. Here we go. Let's get to this one. So we had a little Shohei Ohtani news. Unfortunately, my Red Sox came up in a negative light. And so he actually posted this today at 11:37. And he has here, among the teams I have confirmed are still in for Ohtani: the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Blue Jays, and the Angels. I'm telling you, everyone, I'm going to say this right off the bat. I'm not counting out this Angels team. I've been saying it for weeks. Don't be surprised if he goes back to the Angels. Don't. I told you all this in the off-season preview going into the off-season. I told you all this. Don't be surprised if he just goes back. I think it's very, very, very possible he goes to one of these other teams. But again, it's going to come down to he's sitting at the table. He's listening to what they got to say. All those, hey, say what you will about the Angels, and they haven't been able to win. But again, we can have our opinions, right? We can think, oh, the Angels, they're not going to win. They haven't been able to win with them. That doesn't matter. It matters what Ohtani thinks. He doesn't care what you think. Do you think Ohtani really cares what you think or I think? He doesn't care what my potato face has to say at all, right? He cares what he thinks. And if he thinks that the Angels can win, that's what matters, right? So I think they could have something. And that's a really good point, Wolfpack. They got Ron Washington, right? Ron Washington is a very successful guy in Major League Baseball, right? Getting to back-to-back World Series with the Rangers, right? With the Braves over the last few years. They've been playing a lot of winning baseball. Listen, man, I think the Angels, you just can't count them out. I know I'm probably, you're probably rolling your eyes, but I'm still not counting out the Dodgers, the Cubs, and the Blue Jays here, right? We had the super chat earlier about the Blue Jays. There's just something about the Blue Jays. Like, I feel like they're going to be able to really put on a full court press. I really do. I think, they're going to have Ohtani sitting there with Ross Atkins and everyone else from the Rogers, media company. They're going to be bringing him everything in this meeting. all these, like, I can see it now. Like the table just has like this spread, like a smorgasbord of food, right? All of Canada's finest foods, right? Hey, Shohei, do you want to try this? It's from this restaurant that's right around the corner. It's delicious. Have a bite, right? I could see the Blue Jays, doing something like that, right? Just trying to just wine and dine this guy. But what it comes down to is there's something that the Blue Jays have been very hyped for the last few years, right? Go back to the last few off seasons. They have made some moves, right? And they just haven't been able to get it done. And I just wonder what Ohtani thinks about that, right? There seems to be, and we've read the reports, right? We've seen the reports. So there just seems to be, some kind of a disconnect, right? There's just something there, right? If you go back to the players with the Blue Jays last year, not one guy had over a 500 slugging. Why is that? Why is Vlad Jr. struggling, right? Why are, Bo Bichette and Vlad in the rumor mill, right? Ross Atkins actually did talk about Bo Bichette, saying that he plans for him to be their shortstop, right? So I think maybe we could put the Bo Bichette rumors away, but he didn't say anything about Vlad, unless I missed it. Did Ross Atkins say anything about Vlad? I didn't catch it. I saw him talk about Bo Bichette. Did he mention anything about Vlad? I don't know. If he didn't say anything about Vlad, I think that's really interesting. I think I'm just saying. Evil Wax 73, once he has the Chicago deep dish pizza, it'll be a done deal. Listen, if there's any, companies out there that, maybe want to, talk to me about hosting some kind of a show, and if you bring me a Chicago deep dish pizza, I mean, I'm signing on the dotted line. I'm just saying, hey, bring me a steak from Chicago. I'll be moving there in the next 12 hours. All right, I'll hop on a plane and I'll put my butt on that seat and I'll head to Chicago. If you give me the finest steak from Chicago, give me a nice deep dish pizza, I'm yours. I'm just saying, Shohei Ohtani. Listen, the pizza's good over there, man. I remember the first time I went to Chicago. Oh my God, it's so good. Deep dish pizza is not my go-to. I'm like a New York style kind of a slice. I like I'm like Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports. I prefer my pizza like the way he does. The undercarriage is nice and charred and crispy, right? It's light, or, that's my kind of pizza. I do like a deep dish pizza though. I'm just saying. Anyway, listen, we're talking about pizza here. We got to talk about Ohtani. But here are the four teams: Dodgers, Cubs, Blue Jays, Angels. And he also mentioned here today that the Rangers and one team in the AL East has dropped out. Teams who feel they aren't real players are beginning to take themselves out of the talks. And then he actually gave a tweet, an update, saying that the Red Sox are out, or at the very least looking elsewhere at the moment. That's what I think, honestly, it is. And this is not Draft Nick Robbie speaking. That I honestly think, because the Red Sox, they don't need, how do I say this? It's going to sound ridiculous. I was about to say the Red Sox don't need Ohtani. But when you look at, every team could use Ohtani, right? You make room for Ohtani no matter what. But the Red Sox, when it comes down to it, they need pitching. They need pitching more than they need Ohtani. So that makes sense to me, right? That they're maybe focusing on Yamamoto. They're maybe focusing on Jordan Montgomery. We got the Zoom meetings coming up, right? Unless they've already had one. They got to prepare for that Zoom meeting with Yamamoto. They got to, they got to land that guy. Come on, Craig. Yamamoto, get him to Boston. Dice K, number 18 back in the day. Listen, I think there's an underrated thing in this whole Yamamoto sweepstakes. Dice K still talks very highly of the Red Sox to this day. Listen, man, Dice K, that was like the big name, right, that the Red Sox got a long time ago. I still remember all of that. I loved the Dice K drama, and when the Red Sox landed him, oh my God, I was so excited for it. It was awesome. But Dice K, man, that guy was a legend over in Japan. If you got that guy vouching for the Red Sox for Yamamoto, it's game over. at that point. They've had a lot of success with Japanese players. So that's why I think the Red Sox, I don't think they're really fully focusing on Ohtani. I think they've made their calls. They've presented what they've had to present. We got the money. We got New Balance. You like Fenway. You like playing here. This is a storied franchise. You know what they're going to present, right? Here's the offer. It's on the table. We're going to go elsewhere. Who knows if they even have an offer? I don't even know. But I could see the Red Sox focusing on other things. But the way I've always looked at Ohtani with the Red Sox is if he falls into their lap, right? That's the only way I see it. I don't see the Red Sox pursuing him like the Dodgers, like the Cubs, like the Blue Jays, right? Or the Angels, of course, right? So that is a little something there when it comes to Ohtani. We had a couple of super chats coming in, and we have actually a little something else from John Heyman today. Mel P2, how you doing? $4.99. Do you think the Red Sox? Do you think the Red Sox made a mistake when they had the chance to trade Casas for Lopez? Right now, the Red Sox need pitching. No, I think Casas. Nah, that's a really good bat to hang on to. I think Casas, that's going to be he's a fan favorite, right? And I think Lopez definitely could have helped them with the pitching. But I think the one thing with Casas is that fans are really starting to love him, right? Because he's a quirky dude, right? And that's the one thing. If you go back, to over the years with Red Sox players, the Red Sox, they love having those quirky kind of players, right? They like having those different personalities. And Tristan Casas, he's a different cat, man. That dude's out there tanning out in the field. He's taking naps in the clubhouse. Tristan Casas, man, he's also a smart guy, right? If you ever hear him talk when it comes to the post games, he's a smart dude. That's a guy I will, be the first to admit, I thought there was, maybe a chance the Red Sox could trade him. I saw the value in getting pitching, right? But I knew if you got rid of Casas, that would have hurt, right? That would have hurt. But I'm glad they held on to him because he's turning into a fan favorite, and he's very good with the bat, right? And he's just a typical Red Sox hitter, a guy that gets on base, he mashes. Like, that's the kind of hitter the Red Sox like. Yeah, I would love pitching, but I'm glad we held on to Casas. And we had another super chat here. Braves have been pretty quiet. That's scary. Isn't it? That is scary, right? That is very, very scary. Very scary. At the Braves, you're not hearing much, right? I personally think they're going to be getting something done. And honestly, we'll talk about Dylan Cease in just a second. I know the Dodgers have a really good chance of getting Cease. The one thing I've thought about with the Dodgers, and I'll get to that in just a little bit, is I just wonder where the main focus is right now, right? And the Braves right now, I just feel like they have more of an ability right now to zero in on Cease, while the Dodgers, they have different things to take care of, right? Yeah, I know they need Cease, but they got to keep an eye on Ohtani as well. The Braves, they could be in an Ohtani. That could be a dark horse, right? That's been mentioned, but I just wonder if that is an advantage for the Braves, that they're really trying to work something out. And again, it's going to come down to what do the White Sox prefer? Do the White Sox prefer the players that the Braves are sending back, compared to the Dodgers offer? I don't know. Anyway, back to Ohtani. Let's finish up with this one. These were some quotes here from John Heyman and Jacob Zanala. Thank you for putting these out there. I was going to put the clip up, but I'm just glad that we got some quotes instead. So John Heyman, he says Cubs have a good shot on Ohtani. Giants are in there hot. Blue Jays, I've heard whispers they are in. Red Sox, I've heard some buzz. They're bound to do something big. I personally think that something big is Yamamoto. I really do. I don't know what it is. Like, the stars just align for me, right? The Red Sox, that is such a perfect fit for them, right? I'm sorry, the Giraffe Neck Robbie is going crazy right now, but he's perfect when it comes to the timeline. Like, he's the perfect age to build your rotation around. Oh, it's perfect. I think that's the something big. I don't think it's Ohtani. Padres, long shot. Why are we even talking to Padres? Like, of course they're not in. They can't even pay anyone. They got to get loans. The Rangers, they have checked in. I've always thought the Rangers could be a dark horse. The Yankees have checked in. Yeah, I mean, I just don't see the Yankees doing it. I just don't. The fact that they wouldn't even go get Harper, right? I just, I don't see them doing Ohtani. Dodgers still the favorites. I'm telling you, man. Is it just me? Is it just like the more I keep seeing the Dodgers for Ohtani? Is there more of a chance that he just doesn't go there? I don't know. Like, is that just me? I could be wrong. He could just end up being a Dodger here in the next couple of days if he wants to get signed before the winter meetings. We got 2 days, everyone. We got 4, but 2 more weekdays, right? We got Thursday. We got Friday. People are probably going to be traveling for the winter meetings over the weekend, so I'm not sure what kind of an effect that will have. I would imagine at some point in the next couple of days, it could get pretty intense, right? So, but again, the more I keep seeing the Dodgers, it's just like, how many times have we seen the obvious doesn't happen? It feels like it's always the case. It feels like that always happens with, the most obvious pick doesn't happen. I just wonder, man, the more I keep seeing the Dodgers being listed as the favorites, I just wonder, and again, I mentioned this. I wonder if Ohtani could be maybe a little hesitant about going to the Dodgers because of all the injuries they've been having with their pitchers, right? Walker Buehler, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin. I mean, look at all the injuries they were having. Could that be something? Man? I don't know. I just wonder. But those are the quotes from John Heyman. Ohtani, sweepstakes, go on. Here we go, everyone. Here we go. Let's move on here to Dylan Cease. We got a little Dylan Cease, and we're going to start kind of moving through these next couple of stories here. We still got a couple of juicy ones to talk about. Could something end up happening tonight? Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be crazy if something happened right now? Oh, that'd be amazing. Could you imagine something with Ohtani just happen right now? Oh, I would lose my mind if Ohtani signed right now. But we have to talk about the news. Dylan Cease, we have talked about Dylan Cease here a lot this week. But John Morosi, he's keeping the train moving, the Dylan Cease train moving, saying here, trade talks have intensified in the last 48 hours, and some people close to the negotiations believe a deal before the winter meetings is increasingly possible. It feels like that, right? I'm telling you, I think something is happening before the winter meetings, like whether if it's Soto, whether if it's Cease or Ohtani, right? Because here's the thing with the winter meetings, right? You want to get stuff done before the meetings if you can, right? If you think about the advantage that you got, if you land a big fish before the meetings, because in the winter meetings, these are when the guys are together. These are when all the front office executives are together. And if you get the big one, if you land Ohtani, land Cease, land Soto, you don't got to worry about that during the meetings, right? Of course, we do see the big things happen during the meetings, right? But if you can get it done before, that's amazing, right? Because then you can focus on those other little areas of your teams, right? But maybe teams will want to wait. Maybe AJ Preller will want to wait until the meetings because maybe he thinks another team could jump in or something. I don't know. Or, I don't know. Maybe Ohtani's agent maybe wants to wait until the meetings. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? It all comes down to the leverage at the end of the day. Negotiations are always a funny thing. So I do think something happens, though, before the end of the week. I told you all Sunday night. Remember what I said Sunday night to all of you? I said, I think something big happens this week. We got Sonny Gray on Monday. Monday morning, we get Sonny Gray to the Cardinals. So right off the bat, I was right. And I think something else could happen. So we'll see. But Dylan Cease, we've talked about this, right? There's not really a whole lot else to say here. When you look at the teams that could be the finalists, you're looking at teams like the Dodgers, right? Let's go pull up the Dodgers here real quick. I mean, obviously, we all know they need pitching. Of course, Ohtani, yeah, sure. But they really need pitching. If you had Cease here, then you got Walker Buehler, Cease is your number 2, Miller is your number 3. That's really solid, right? And then the Atlanta Braves. And I'm going to be honest with you, Braves fans, I'm probably going to make you happy here. Listen, when I think of Dylan Cease as the number 3 in this rotation, that sounds pretty nice. Dylan Cease, that's a really good number 3, right? Strider, Fried. And then Cease as your 3, who gives you innings, gives you good stuff. I love it. I love the idea of it. But these are the 2 teams that I think, could you maybe see a team like the Reds jump in? That's been a team that has been, I guess connected, or is it more speculative? I don't know, but when you're looking at the Reds and kind of, they also added Emilio Pagan today on a 2-year deal. I actually thought that was really solid. Good move for them. This is a guy a couple of years ago, wasn't very good a couple of years ago, but he's turned it around here, especially this past year. Very solid. I think that's a really nice pickup, and their bullpen was really good last year, so you're adding Pagan to this bullpen. Very good. So, but yeah, Cease, that would be a really nice fit. He would definitely be your opening day guy. I just wonder, will the Reds really want to go after Cease? Because we've seen the Reds connected with Tyler Glasnow, with Shane Bieber. Those 2 are going to be way cheaper to acquire than Dylan Cease. So that makes me think they're probably not in on Cease because they're looking at the cheaper guys. So I don't think you can really think the Reds are an option. So when you think about it, and one more team, could the Cardinals maybe jump in, right? The one thing with the Cardinals, you just added Gray, you added Gibson, you added Lynn. So they got their 3 starters, right? Is this the rotation you go into next year? We've seen Cardinals teams in the past. If you think back to, the successful Cardinals teams, right? Think back to, go back to when, they made the World Series, right? Back in 2013. Back in 2004. Remember, they had Woody Williams in 2004. Their starting rotation in 2004 was not that great. Go back to 2013. You had Waka. You had guys like Wainwright, right? But they've never had like these star-studded pitchers, right? Unless I'm completely missing something. Am I completely missing someone that was like one of the top pitchers in the game that was on the Cardinals? I'm probably missing someone. My brain is probably forgetting. But whenever I think of the Cardinals, I don't think of them having... Chris Carpenter. I knew I was going blank on one. Right? Yeah, Carpenter obviously was great in 2006. 2004, I believe Carpenter was hurt that year, if I remember correctly. Right? 2011, obviously, Carpenter was massive. But there have been a lot of teams with the Cardinals, especially lately, if you go back, over how many years now? I don't even know how many years. When did Chris Carpenter retire? I can't even remember. But they haven't really had like these top of the rotation guys. So I could see them going into next year with this rotation, honestly. This would not surprise me if Sonny Gray was the opening day guy for them. So, Cardinals did have John Lackey. I forgot about that one. Laptop guy. Good for you. That was a good one. John Lackey. Chris Carpenter, man. I love Chris Carpenter. Can that guy just come out of retirement? I'm sure he could still pitch. But could Dylan Cease be something for the Cardinals? Yeah. But, the Cardinals, will they want to give up the prospects? They just acquired all these prospects at the deadline last year. So will they want to give it up? I have suggested Cease would be great for them. I still think they could work out something. If you included Brendan Donovan, you could get something done. I don't know if that happens, though. But to me, I think the 2 teams that you really got to look out for, the Braves and the Dodgers. And the more I think about it, the more, and someone mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. Nah, Joseph Gunter. Don't you do that. Don't you do that. What do you mean Jeff Passan? Or is it Jet Passan? Nah, no Jeff Passan news. We can't be doing that. Unless, did I miss something? Nope. Yep. Nope. No Jeff Passan. Jeff Passan's here, everyone. Look in the chat. Jeff Passan is here. Oh, my goodness. I can't believe it. Thank you for giving us the time, Mr. Jeff Passan. I greatly appreciate it. Can you please tell me that Yamamoto is coming to the Red Sox, please? But yeah, Dylan Cease, Braves, Dodgers. I think it's down to these two, right? And of course it's down to these two. These two have been just solid rivals, it feels like, the last 3 years, right? So let's move on here. But everyone, real quick, I do want to go over the couple of sponsors that we have for tonight. A couple of sponsors. And everyone, I did actually introduce a deal for all of you. And that's with a website that I have used a lot on this channel. And actually, we just used it a little earlier with a couple of trade ideas, and that is baseballtradevalues.com. And right now, on Baseball Trade Values, for the holidays, we got a little bit of a deal, right? We got a little something if you wanted to get yourself a Christmas gift. Right now on baseballtradevalues.com, they have a couple of new subscription options, right? You could either sign up to be a front office executive, or you could be a general manager. For the front office membership, it's $40 for the whole year. I mean, that is honestly a steal. I mean, that is just insane. But $60 for a general manager subscription for the year, I'm telling you, with all the look at all these perks that you're getting. It's amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of good things that come along. They have completely updated and renovated this site. So right now, if you use my code HYDE, you get 10% off, and that's not a bad deal if you ask me. If you're a member on Fangraphs, right, that's about right around the same price, right around $60. And also, right, if you become if you get the general manager subscription, right, you get there is a little something, right, when it comes to maybe even getting a t-shirt, right? So I'm just saying, man. But they've completely renovated the site. If you are interested in getting yourself a little something for the holidays, take a look. They got a couple of options here for subscriptions. And if you use my code HYDE, you get 10% off. Just make sure you use it at checkout. But yeah. One more one more sponsor before we actually get to the rest of the news. We are partners here with Underdog Fantasy, your number one stop for all of your daily fantasy needs. So obviously right now, no baseball right now, but we got basketball pretty much every single night. We got football on a couple of times a week. And hey, go try it out. You got pick'ems, you got drafts, right? And you can do in-game pick'ems as well. That's a really cool feature that they've added for this year. Even when the game is going on, you can still make bets, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. But as always, make sure you're playing responsibly. That is the most important thing at the end of the day. Don't go crazy. Just play responsibly. Please, I ask you. But definitely go check it out. I've had a lot of fun with Underdog Fantasy this year, and yeah, I'm encouraging all of you to as well. Let's get back to the news here. We got a few more things to talk about before we wrap things up for the night. And who knows, maybe something could happen here. Maybe something could happen. It's a little quiet. But the Mets are getting in on the action. Luis Severino heading to the Mets. And I said this earlier on X, right? I think I said this to Stanzo on Xland, right? Big Yankee fan. Go follow him if you're a Yankee fan or just a baseball fan that wants to pay attention to Yankee people on there. Stanzo is a really solid account to follow. But he said, Luis Severino, Mets, that's just weird, right? And I said, it's weird, but it feels kind of right, which is also kind of weird. I don't know what it is. Like seeing Severino in a Mets jersey, it just kind of looks right. I don't know why. I don't know. But 1 year deal, $13 million, and that's kind of really what I thought he was going to get. And I did a video. If you haven't seen this video, I actually did one free agent for each team that they should sign, not a prediction, right? Free agents that they should sign. And I actually had Luis Severino for the Brewers, right? Because I've been thinking over the last several years, they have signed pitchers and they have been able to get them on track, right? They're very big on the analytics, right? Looking at the shape of pitches and whatnot, looking at mechanical adjustments. And I thought, you know what, Severino, I think would be a pretty good fit for the Brewers. But my potato brain, not that I forgot David Stearns was no longer with the Brewers, but you know, David Stearns was with the Brewers those years, and now he's with the Mets. So I guess I somehow, maybe some way, connected dots a little bit, sort of, maybe, kind of. But I could see someone like David Stearns bringing in Severino because he did the same thing with the Brewers, you know, bringing in, you know, different kinds of pitchers there and, you know, trying to get them a little bit more on track, right? So I think it's a good deal, you know, and the Mets, I think right now with the kind of the year that they're going into, yes, they are going to be competitive next year. They're definitely going to try and compete, but I think it makes some sense to, you know, add a high upside guy in Severino. When you look at the numbers with Severino, this guy has had really good numbers over the years. I honestly think last year, you know, once again, going through injuries, I just think with last year, something was just off for him. You had the pitch clock last year. I just feel like when you think about Severino last year, I see a guy that was just really out of sync, right? And just didn't have a consistent thing going on. So I think, you know, fresh start. He's staying in New York. I think it makes sense. And I think with Stearns leading the way, you know, with what he's putting together over there, I think this is a good high upside move. Hey, let's see if he has a good year. Who knows? You know, I think there's a lot of different things that you could look at positively with this. Let's say the Mets are not even in it, right? I think they will be in the hunt for a wild card spot. We'll see. But let's say they're not in it. And let's say Severino's having a good year. You could just trade him, right? And you can bring in some more prospects, right? Kind of like what the Royals did with Chapman last year. You could definitely do something like that. Or if you are in contention, he does well, you're able to get him back on track, and then you can sign him to an extension. And that's a solid piece to have in your rotation for the next couple of years, right? So I think there's a lot of positives with this. It's a low-risk, high-reward kind of a move, and I think that's very smart for the New York Mets. But with other news on the Mets right now, they got Joey Wendell as well. Joey Wendell, that's a guy that can play multiple positions. He's a good clubhouse guy. That's I think a good piece to add for the Mets. Now, you're not going to be getting like the most amazing numbers here, you know, nothing crazy. And again, you know, with Wendell, it's not, he's going to be a guy that will play multiple positions for you. He's not going to blow you away when it comes to the offense. You know, it is what it is. But Wendell, he has been a guy in the past that has put up some decent numbers. You know, I don't think he's going to get back to that 117 WRC plus that he put up in 2020 with the Marlins. He was just completely abysmal. Who knows? You know, remember, he was with again, I hate to keep bringing up analytics, but he was with a very analytical organization back in 2020 and 2021, and 2018 and 2019. But he had some pretty decent years back in 21 and 20. So maybe with David Stearns, you know, with the coaching staff and everything that they're putting together there, maybe they could get more out of Joey Wendell. So I like the move. It's fine. You know, you're adding something there. But they are showing some interest in a certain pitcher out there. And again, getting back to Michael Marino, who will be on the show tomorrow night, starting pitching market is active. Not entirely impossible we see one of the bigger free agent arms go in the next day or two. The lefties are drawing a ton of interest. Eduardo Rodriguez and Jordan Montgomery. Some teams wary of waiting out the Yamamoto sweepstakes. I agree. Like, unless you're like a team, I'm sorry, Giraffe Nick Robbie's coming back. But if the Red Sox, they can afford to wait, right? They absolutely can afford to wait. But they also need to, you know, make sure they're going after other guys too. And he also pointed out here, he says, I think at least with Montgomery, he may wait a little for the market to start rolling. Doesn't seem like he's in a particular rush, but that doesn't mean he's opposed to signing soon. I just think with Montgomery, I think if the right deal comes up for him, you know, yeah, then I could see him definitely doing it, right? His wife and him, they actually just moved to Boston for the offseason because she's finishing up, I think, her residency for dermatology school, if I remember that correctly. So they're actually in Boston right now. So yeah, Jordan Montgomery, this guy's a Red Sox. I'm just saying. But the Mets are also showing interest in Eduardo Rodriguez, according to Mike Meyer of Metsmerized. Taking a look here, he says, sources, the Mets have shown interest in left-handed pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez. All right, very simple tweet. I could definitely see Eduardo Rodriguez here. I think this would be a great fit. If we look at the Mets rotation right now, you got Senga, you got Quintana, Severino they just added. Rodriguez would be awesome here. You'd have Senga as your number 1. You'd have Erod as your number 2. Quintana, Severino, however it works out, could be your number 3, or maybe they could even add someone else. I know Mets fans, they're very high on Yamamoto. I'm just saying. Could you imagine if you had Yamamoto, you also brought in Eduardo Rodriguez? I mean, goodness gracious, what a rotation that would be. But look out for Eduardo Rodriguez. His name is starting to pop up a little bit. Could he end up going here in the next couple of days? We'll have to wait and see. And I'm going to save this story for last. And we got a little something. Speaking of lefties, I'm going to save the best lefty pitcher on the market for last, and that is Blake Snell. Mark Feinsand, he is reporting here that the Angels are very interested in signing Blake Snell. And taking a look here, this was on MLB.com. I think he was also talking about Josh Hader in this video, right? I'm not going to play the video because I don't want to get slapped with any copyright claims or anything. But Mark Feinsand did talk about this earlier today, and he's saying that the Angels are showing interest in Blake Snell. And that makes me wonder, are the Angels... have they maybe accepted the fact that Ohtani maybe isn't coming back? I think that could say something, right? I'm not counting the Angels out. I will not be surprised at all if he goes back. But I will clearly not be surprised if he ends up leaving as well. But Blake Snell, I think, could be amazing for the Angels, to be completely honest with you. He would stay out west, right? When it comes to Blake Snell, and I've said this before with Jim over on Ballcap Sports. And Jim, if you're watching, thank you for sending over everyone tonight from your live stream earlier, talking with Blue Jays today. Those guys are awesome. I love those guys. They're just fantastic. But I talked about this. I said, if there is one team out there that could have a real shot at Blake Snell, I could see the Angels having, right? Because if they throw money at him, he'll be like, all right. Right? And there was actually a little something. I don't know if this was today or if this was like the other day, but I read this. I guess there was like a younger kid that saw him somewhere, whether if it was like in Seattle or maybe it was at the football game that he was at with the Seahawks. I don't remember where. I can't remember where exactly. But I guess a kid said, hey, come to the Mariners. And he said back to the kid, hey, tell them to come get me. Right? Honestly, I really think if the Angels just throw money at Blake Snell, he'll take the money. I mean, Blake Snell is kind of one of those guys, in my opinion, when I read his personality, I could just see him being like, all right, sweet. They're offering me $200 million. They're offering me 20 more than the next team that's, also offering. Yeah, I'll go to the Angels. I feel like he's kind of one of those guys, like he cares, but he also doesn't care at the same time. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, he's just kind of got like a loosey-goosey personality, right? He's just whatever team's just going to give him the money, I think he'll go there. Snell, I think, is one of those guys, he just takes the mound, and he's just going to pitch, man. Like he's not, I think he cares about the analytics and whatnot, but that dude just goes out there and competes, right? So, yeah, I could see the Angels absolutely having a chance at him if they don't get Ohtani back. And I think that could end up being a blessing in disguise. If they don't get Ohtani back with the organization, I mean, think of all the money that they would have. Think of all the money that they would have to go and try and get some other players, right? Yeah, it might be hard to convince them, but they could overpay for some of these guys, like Blake Snell, right? If you get Blake Snell, yeah, you'd have a lot of lefties in this rotation. That would be a ton of lefties, man. You'd have Snell, Detmers, Sandoval, Anderson. You'd have 4 lefties in this rotation, right? So that's a lot of lefties. So I don't know. And then Griffin Canning, Seth, whatever way you end up going there. Yeah, look out for this, everyone. Look out for the Angels. I think they could be a dark horse for Blake Snell. So, everyone, I'm out of here. I'm going to wrap things up. We had a great show here tonight. I love all of you for stopping by. We had a very good amount of people here tonight. Let's check the like goal. We got to 261 likes. I love all of you. The like goal was 200 for tonight. And, hey, can we get to 300 on the way out? Can we do it? Can you help us get there? I will love you forever. But if you are new, looking for baseball content, looking for more of it, subscribe, join the family. We're talking baseball here pretty much every single day. Again, hit that like button for me. Make sure the bell is on just in case anything happens. You want to know when I'm going live, right? Share the show. Share anything else on the channel. And don't forget about our sponsor tonight, Underdog Fantasy, your number one stop for all your daily fantasy needs. Link is in the description. Promo code is HIDE. And also, everyone, real quick, I'm sorry, I don't mean to kind of bombard, throw all these things at you, but everyone, if you could, go check out Factor Meals. Okay? Great meals, solid quality. I just had one earlier. I had what did I have? I had the chicken pot pie pasta. Oh, phenomenal. I had one yesterday. It was chicken breast with sweet potato grits. Oh, so freaking good. I'm not even, you're probably thinking, oh my God, this is cringe. Listen, I'm an obese boy at heart, and when I taste something good, I'm going to be all over it. And trust me, I'm a critic, man. If something's bad, I'm going to say it. I'm telling you, man, Factor Meals, go check it out. Use the code HIDE50 at checkout. Use the code HIDE50. Just go to factor75.com and use the code HIDE50. And I will love you forever. Everyone, I'm out of here. Go have yourself a great night, and thank you for stopping by tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow night. Michael Marino will be on the show with us tomorrow night, and hey, we're going to have some fun. Let's see if anything happens tomorrow. We'll be talking about it. Have yourself a great night, everyone, and I'll talk to you next time.